Hey, Hound Dogs, I'm David Hankins.
And I'm Paul Hankins.
Back in 2018, we did an Ask Me Anything where people were able to ask any question they wanted to about Power Squared and breaking into the comic book industry. We did that on a website called AMAfeed.com. We thought it'd be kind of fun to do another one. Unfortunately, that website is now defunct.
Since we recently passed our 25 subscriber goal on the YouTube channel, we thought it would be fun to go back and revisit those questions to see if our answers have changed in any way. And so without further ado, let's get right into it.
What is the theme of your series, Power Squared? Well, wasn't it about alienation and belonging?
Yeah.
I looked at the answers from last time. I think those were the kind of the things we were going for. I mean, the boys are sort of feel alienated, and they want to belong, and they've gone to try to find themselves at this new school.
Yeah.
And then they find that they have this thing that still alienates them.
Yeah.
Obviously, keeping a presence at conventions is necessary for those in the independent field. But what other ways do you promote your work, and do you have any advice on this subject for any up-and-comers out there?
Well, we promote our work through social media.
Right.
Doing this podcast, doing YouTube videos.
We do a newsletter.
Yeah.
We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Pinterest, we're on LinkedIn.
As for any advice, probably it's better to build up an audience before you put something out, because then more people will know what it is and where to go to get it.
Right.
As opposed to what we did, which is we're kind of doing this whole thing backwards.
Yeah, we had sort of this idea to do a comic book, and we didn't think about having a fan base and that kind of stuff. We just sort of went forward with it.
Yeah.
And so we're playing a little bit of catch up. We'll be talking more about marketing in future episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, and this has not been a great year for conventions, 2020.
Yeah, I know.
And we had
2021 will be probably not much better anyway.
Yeah, probably not until fall. So all the conventions I don't know if any of the conventions that we normally think of will actually happen. But,
yeah.
And it's also, if you're starting out, I would tell you to start out small. Don't go to Comic-Con first thing.
Yeah.
Or New York Comic-Con or.
Yeah, it's okay to, if you go do the convention circuit, it's okay to do some of the smaller conventions, even ones you may not have thought of.
And you might try to go to your local comic book store and see if they'll let you do a signing there.
Yeah.
And maybe even sell it. Anyway, so that's our advice. Or just don't do it. And then read our stuff. There you go.
How would you describe the storytelling style you used for Power Squared, and what draws you to this type of style? I don't know what to say with style of storytelling.
Yeah.
As we've gone on, there's been more of a manga influence with the storytelling style. In that case, it's because we have a somewhat Japanese influence with this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just putting more of that into it.
Style's kind of like theme.
How has Power Squared been received? Pretty well generally by the people who have read it.
Yes, it's getting people to actually read it. Has been the issue we've had.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the second question. Professional reviews, we've gotten one person's actually reviewed them all. And
yeah.
It's been 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, which isn't,
not bad for our first.
Yeah, for not knowing what we're doing. I always thought that was pretty good. But I mean, we'd really like to have more people read it and react and actually talk about it besides us doing it. But
yeah.
I think the general issue is people, I mean, unless they're totally lying to us, seem to like it.
Yeah. What is the most unusual part of your job or something people can't believe you do? Well, I guess for me, it's as the editor.
Mm-hmm.
I not only edit the stories for dialogue,
mm-hmm.
but I also do all the editing of the videos and podcasts.
Right. We do write a newsletter every week.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just hyping this video, but we also try to do some writing about other creative twins and things like that once a month.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that would be the most unusual part. And maintain a website. I guess that was the other thing.
Yeah.
I have no experience doing that, and I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So, if you like it, great. So yeah, there's a lot of little things you have to do besides just. In our case, we're just writing it. Somebody's drawing it for us, and I know some people are out there that write and draw.
Yeah.
The lucky ones. Because I think it's easier if you could do that.
Who are you, and how can people learn more about you and your work?
I'm David Hankins.
And I'm Paul Hankin. Well, you can learn more about our work by going to powersquaredcomicbook.com, and you can subscribe to the newsletter.
By enrolling
yes.
at SRCC, which is
Yeah.
also on the website. That is San Ramiro Community College, the t-shirt you're wearing. That is where our main characters go to school. And so we thought we'd kind of move a little towards a theme of college.
Yeah.
So you can enroll at the school, get the newsletter, and it'll show you everything we do every week. And then you could also, on the website, go to the school store,
Yeah.
campus store, and buy issues and t-shirts like what you're wearing.
Yes.
Mine, this is retro. Since we're doing old questions, I thought I'd wear something old. But you can go there and hopefully you'll find out everything you'd want to know.
What is the origin story for your two lead characters? Well, they rescued a magical kitsune who granted them superpowers as a reward, but they didn't know about this and these powers until, or understand these powers really, until they were in community college.
Yeah, they were about 7 years old, taking a walk through the woods, talking about their own situation.
Yeah.
And they heard this cry, and there's actually an issue we're doing called How They Met,
Yes.
which will tell you the origin story
Yes.
and give you a little behind the scenes and see kind of Mocha's point of view.
Yeah.
Who is the magical kitsune that gave him the powers.
Yeah, so look forward to that.
Yeah, so that's coming out soon.
What would you consider to be your favorite panel from your last 5 issues, and what is it about this panel that you prefer? Does the 2-page splash count as a panel?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. We actually have in issue 10, there's a 2-page panel.
Yeah, 2-page spread.
Yeah, 2-page spread, which is pretty coal.
What were you going to say?
Just to kind of get kind of artsy, was at the end of What's in a Name,
Yeah.
part 2, issue 11. There's a panel at the end where it's Marty and Quincy kissing, and it's kind of silhouette, and
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a nice looking panel.
What, in your opinion, is more important, the story or the art in a comic, and what are the reasons for your answer? It's less about the story versus the art, more about how the story and the art work together, because comics are an inherently visual medium, and the art style needs to match the kind of story that you're doing.
Right, and we've been pretty lucky that the artists we have can do that.
Yeah. At the same time, you still need a good story, so it's best if one aspect doesn't carry the whole thing. What was the most difficult thing about breaking into the comic book industry? I don't even know that we've broken in.
Yeah, I always like to say we're kind of like that show on Netflix that you don't know is there, but it is there. You have to kind of find it. It's a tough. I would think getting attention is the hardest thing about it.
Yeah.
Getting people to notice that you're out there doing this. I'll say great work, and trying to get people to take notice of it.
Yeah.
And you have to do. People aren't going to just find you.
Yeah. You have
As we
to.
have learned.
You have to put yourself out there in a way that doesn't annoy people.
Right.
In a way that isn't very pushy.
Right. I mean, I think we're not too much in people's faces.
No.
But there are some times, I know I have some newsletters where it seems like I get a thing every day. And yeah, you always wonder, like, how did they, like, you see a comic book and you go, wow, they have like, and I know the number of followers means nothing because you actually want people to actually buy it.
Yeah.
But they have 1,400 or 14,000 people following it. How do people know about this?
Yeah. Interacting with other people is also a good way to do it. Like if you're on YouTube and you're trying to build a following there, leaving comments on other people's videos that aren't self-promotion and actually relevant to the video can actually convert into subscribers. Look up Justin Y for a good example. Do you have any interest in more mainstream comics? And if so, which characters or properties would you most like to get your hands on? I'm still a fan of Deadpool. If I was to actually write Deadpool, I'd probably need someone who's also good at comedy, because Deadpool is a very comedic character.
I had read some Captain Marvel and Captain America stuff, and I really don't know what you could do with those beyond kind of what's already, kind of been done, I guess. I don't know. You would think somebody like, I hate to say it, Batman seems to have a multitude of facets to him as far as, or universes, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
You could probably fit one of those in. Yeah, I don't really have any sort of desire at this point to try to get in. I mean, that is where you're trying to get a job at Marvel or the DC, and we're just trying to get this going.
But honestly, I think the best way to, if I was in charge of one of those big name properties, I would probably do something more like a limited series that doesn't necessarily have to tie into the continuity of whatever's happening, because at this point, Marvel and DC's continuity, despite how many reboots they've done, can get kind of impenetrable with how much information there is.
Yeah, and the other thing is you maybe don't want to take somebody that's like already has movies made about them, because people have they think of, those in the sense of the movies they've seen. Maybe you want to pick somebody that's a Marvel or a DC character that's not been in the movies.
Right. But as far as the actual comic, it probably helps that as I said, Batman and Deadpool happen to be very, very versatile characters. You could put them into pretty much any situation or any tone, and it would still make sense to some degree.
Right, they're very versatile.
Yeah. What element of your work gives you the most personal satisfaction?
I like the process. I mean, it's nice that I get to work with you and your brother on it. But I do like kind of the going as much as we can have back and forth with the artist and the colorist about things. That's kind of, it's really cool to watch it come together.
Yeah. And
have a way of saying, oh, how about we do this differently or that differently?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure they love to hear. Especially if they're spending hours on the work. But we try not to do that too much.
Yeah.
And but I like the whole kind of the creative process. I mean, the whole process of, writing it is kind of a solitary thing.
Yeah.
And then but then you get to sort of have sort of a give and take.
Yeah, the collaboration part.
That was the word I could not think of.
The collaboration is interesting and can take what you're doing down a different direction that you may not have thought about before.
Yeah, and a lot of times what I do like is that we'll write something, or I'll write something a certain way, and then the artist will say, oh, I got rid of that panel, and I moved this here or that there, and a lot of times it makes it better.
Yeah.
So you have to be open to wanting to make it better. And if it's not your exact, or it's too wordy or something, we've learned a lot about the process doing it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's I like watching it get better. I feel like I'm Tony Romo talking about football, getting better and better. But I kind of feel that way. It's really cool to make something better.
How do you feel about the way Kickstarter is seemingly changing the game as far as self-publishing is concerned? Kickstarter does allow self-publishers to have more creative control.
And there's some comics, like we interviewed the creators of G-Men.
Yeah.
And they're only right now available through Kickstarters. So if you miss their issue, you can't go back and get it. I guess on the next Kickstarter, I bet you can. But some people use that as their way of figuring out how big their audience is and all that.
Yeah.
And it helps if you're going to do a Kickstarter that you interact with other people, back other Kickstarters, things like that.
Yeah.
You can't just put one out there and hope people will find it again.
Well, as for how it's seemingly changing the game, it is, even in COVID, Kickstarter can still be a lucrative avenue, depending on how well you do the marketing beforehand, of course. Mm-hmm. So I would say it's a good thing that self-publishers have a way to, again, gauge interest and sell things directly to people, but you still have to be careful.
Yeah, and we did a Kickstarter.
Yes.
2019, so like a decade ago. And it gave us a chance to get some stuff out earlier than, some people got the issues early. But it was a nice sort of kind of, way of gauging how people I guess think about us, because it was really mostly family and friends that subscribed.
Yeah.
But we did pick up some other people along the way, and we've been able to build on those. I think Lucas kind of came through that method.
Yeah.
And so you can meet people and then help promote their work and support their work. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's a nice little community if you can get it going.
How do you achieve that distinct look? Do you have any unusual tools in your arsenal? What got you into writing/drawing comic books or graphic novels?
Well, we'll skip the drawing part.
Yes. As for the writing part, probably reading them and being inspired.
Yeah, and the desire to actually do one. If you don't have that spark of inspiration, I can't imagine it'd be really hard to think of. You have to think of something to write
Yeah.
and think about how you can bring it to life.
What process do you follow to create characters and their personalities?
Some of them are based on people that we know.
Yeah,
Or who
at
the
least loosely based on real people.
Yeah. I mean, we're not, yeah. But I mean, sort of Marty is a little bit based on you, and Eli is a little bit based on Trevor. I mean, they have some of your interests and some of your personality quirks, but they're not exactly you guys. And you have to sort of think about, I mean, a lot of times you have an idea for a character, then you have to figure out how to kind of work them in.
Yeah.
And kind of, it's part of, I guess, the writing process. I mean, I don't really think about the personality so much. They just sort of come out in the writing.
I think it's more like what kind of personality best fits the character that's going to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I know that we're trying to always be kind of referenced back to the first issue, with a lot of the characters come from that, and
Yes.
we've added to it since then. But the one we're working on kind of harks, calls back to that
Yeah.
first issue as well. I guess it's your imagination. Kind of, what would they be like?
What tools do you rely on in your day-to-day work? Microsoft Word, Discord for communication,
Email, Dropbox.
email, Dropbox, and then our artists and letterers use their own programs.
Yeah, which I have no idea.
Yeah, I just know Trevor uses, I want to say, Illustrator for the lettering. What inspired you to create and develop Power Squared? Why did you choose to write comics? We wanted to do a comic about twins because Trevor and I noticed while growing up that there were a lot of like either comics or TV shows or sometimes movies, twins are usually used as side or gimmick characters, and when they are main characters, they're more often than not fraternal twins, so they can have like a boy and a girl.
Right.
We wanted to, and of course there are a lot of stereotypes.
Right.
So what we wanted to do was have a story about identical twins that didn't rely too much on stereotypes, and also showed that while twins have a lot of similarities, they also have plenty of their own differences. So they're also distinct people.
You're not just one person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that was the idea, was to, and the whole idea of having them have the power of telepathy was because people think twins can do that.
Yeah, sure. And I got asked stuff like that all the time.
Right. And then you get the, you were Paul and Trevor.
Yeah.
And I've repeated this story before, but I remember I was with one of you in the mall, and someone was, "Hey, it's Paul and Trevor!" And it was just one kid.
Yeah.
You just sort of Sam and Eric from Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that.
Yeah, it's sort of, you're not a unit.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of the reason why the boys in the story are going someplace new, is because they're trying to get away from being that unit. Everybody, as they grew up, everybody associate them with each other. And
Yeah.
This is a chance for them to go someplace, again, together, but try to become separate people.
As for comic books, we decided to do that because it's a visual medium, and also it would be theoretically easier to put together than something like a film or a video game.
How is it like to work with your brother? How do you make decisions, and how do you solve disagreements?
Well, it's kind of easy to work with Trevor on this because we're different parts of the pipeline. We make decisions generally through family discussion.
Yeah.
About what we're doing. We independently have come up with ideas for stories, and as we're solving disagreements, I guess just talking it out. because we have run into a problem where we edit the script including the number of panels, but we don't tell him.
Yeah, that's good.
So we've tried to get a lot better at doing that.
Yeah, because again, as we were saying, the artist will say, "Oh, I dropped this pen on that panel and mushed these together," and which is all good for the story, and it's keeping up with the script part of it.
Yeah.
And letting him know. I like the fact that it's in-house lettering, because if something needs to be changed, it's quick and easy, and he can actually. I trust him to edit something if he needed to.
Yeah.
If it's too long, as opposed to somebody you're not really. I guess you'd be communicating a lot more with letter than, but it just seems easier, I think, to have it in-house.
How long does it take to produce an issue? How is the process?
There's a lot of factors involved. Some of the scripts have been around since the beginning, like 2017 or whatever, when we started doing this. Actually, it's been 8 years, I guess, we've been working on this.
Yeah.
So 2017's halfway through. But some of the ideas have been around for a while. When the artist is getting close to ending a story, we need to think about kind of get the other one kind of ramped up and ready to go. That probably takes a couple of weeks to kind of do that part. Even writing the script will take time.
Yeah.
And go through various versions of it. It's not like a one shot. Here you go. It's great. We have, for financial reasons, kept the artist. And the colorist and the letterer to 8 pages a month. So usually it's the artist will do the 8 pages one month, the colorist will do those 8 pages the next month, and then Trevor will do his lettering the following month. It's 20 pages an issue and a cover. That's at least 3 months.
Yeah.
And then probably 4. Because I think sometimes the coloring and the lettering can kind of get done pretty close together. So it's 4 to 5 months an issue.
What do you hope your readers will take away from Power Squared? Well, I think in a previous question we talked about twins are similar but different people.
Yeah, you kind of hope that they'll come away from reading one issue to want to read the next one as well. So the idea is you're trying to keep the story moving forward, make it interesting, and hopefully people will go, what happens next?
Yeah.
We used to put out the whole story arc at one time. Now we're putting out issue by issue to try to hopefully build momentum from one to the next. But yeah, the idea, I'm hoping that people will come away with a better understanding of twins. We're not the superhero in the typical sense of a superhero. They don't change outfits. Voice doesn't get deeper, and they don't wear capes.
Yeah.
They're basically kind of dressed like they always are, and they just happen to have these capabilities they can do. We call them superpowers, but they're more like things they can do that other people can't. So I think it's sort of the idea that you can superheroes among us kind of deal, and you wouldn't necessarily I like the idea they don't change outfits.
How much of your own personality traits have permeated into your work? Okay, I think for Marty and Eli, the thing that's the most consistent with personality traits is that I'm generally more extroverted and Trevor is generally more introverted.
Yeah, I don't, so your personality, that's how you kind of feel that's how it gets in there?
Yeah. Otherwise, Marty and Eli's interests are generally based on ours, but we try to make it so that they are still people separate from us. If they were an exact copy, then we'd delve into wish fulfillment. Has anime/manga been an influence in your comic? If so, any title in particular? So yes, and for any title in particular, I would probably say JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I think we've leaned more into Part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable, where you have these, supernatural situations, but it takes place in a normal city or town. Diamond is Unbreakable is also closer to, it does go into like murder mystery in the second half, but the first half, and actually the whole thing in general, is kind of more slice of life.
Right.
As opposed to the first 3 parts, which were more like, what is your greatest ambition for your comic? We do potentially see this as an animated series.
Right, and we are kind of working on that as we speak. One of our projects with Rachel, which we discussed last week, is some character design she's doing for what will hopefully be a pitch packet.
Yeah.
And perhaps also an ash can.
Yeah.
So if you subscribe now, you get a copy. You'll get issue number 1. If you subscribe later,
yeah,
you get just a who's who.
If an obscure one-panel comic like Tuttenstein could get made into a successful Discovery Kids show, I think we have a chance.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of elements to it that are would lend itself well as example. Who's your favorite twin of Power Squared, and why?
Well, for me, it's probably Marty, because he's based on me, so I'm a little biased.
Yeah. It's sort of the question you get asked as a parent of twins, who's your favorite? And the answer is always the middle one.
How much character development should readers expect to see in your comics? Plenty.
Yeah, I think we've if you've been reading along, you've noticed that they have developed personalities, relationships. I think I do think there's a lot of that, and it's sort of a character-driven superhero story in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of character development, and kind of also not just individually, but within the tension or the dynamic of the Power Squared group, the unit that is Power Squared. There is still, you see that development as well.
If you were forced to live the rest of your life as one of your characters, who would it be?
My first thought would be to say Mocha, because she's got a lot of powers.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't know what it'd be like to be a girl. You know what I mean? I mean, that's how we've made her. So
Yeah.
the other thing would be Uncle Brian, because he seems not to actually work and still be able to survive
Yeah.
and live nicely and never have a job. That sounds like a pretty good thing too.
What do you think most characterizes your writing?
I think there's a lot. I think we've gotten better at it. There is more emphasis on action
Yeah.
and less. There are some stories that are going to have dialogue and stuff. There's more. We've kind of, I think, have more action in it now,
Yeah.
and I think it's developing. If there's a way of characterizing writing,
Yeah.
it's getting better. But anyway, no, how would you describe it?
When I wrote my issue, I was trying to emphasize more of the action element of it, because I think even though we've made strides in that, Power Squared at its heart is more of an action story, and I wanted to help push that. What would it take to have a Patreon or a print run? We've talked about it, but I think we concluded it would be better to do that if we had more of a following that would be more sustainable, I guess. We had to be in a more stable position where we know people would be willing to donate on a regular basis.
In essence, fund it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that case, if we did do a Patreon, it would be entirely about funding the comic and related projects. I guess in a mainstream print run sense, we'd have to get Diamond's interest.
Yeah, and that's something that I guess we're trying to hope that we can get through Artith Merrick, who is one of the on-demand printers. They're trying to put together a anthology of some of their stories and have Diamond distribute it. And then that would open, I think, the door to us being distributed by Diamond on an individual basis.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then we would have, we'd try to put out like 3 to 4 issues a year.
Yeah.
So we have a backlog, trust me. But that would be something that would I think facilitate that, is to have a distributor.
As for why Diamond, even though they don't like being called a monopoly, they basically are.
Right.
Why did you choose to write a comic book? Would you like to write other genres?
Well, we've talked about why we decided to write the comic book.
Yes.
And we do write in other genres.
Yeah.
You're working on?
Outside of Power Squared, I'm working on a novel. I don't want to get too much into details yet because I'm on like the second draft.
Right, but what genre is it?
It leans more into sci-fi and romance.
And I'm working on novels that are in crime fiction, using the private detective as the main character in the story.
Yeah.
And we also write reviews.
Yes.
For your blog.
Yeah. So I guess that's analytical writing
for Trophy Unlocked.
Yeah.
And we'll have a link to that. But what do you want to say? How to find it?
trophyunlocked.blogspot.com.
And then I also write a blog about writing.
Yes.
1,000 words a day, which is kind of general. Also Blogspot.
Yeah.
So that comes out. It's called A Week in Writing. And it's what I do, and part of it, I'm doing that as a way of kind of discussing the process for me as a writer, with a day job, trying to what am I trying to do during the week?
Yeah.
And what am I working on? And part of that is to keep myself motivated to do it. And I've done it now for like 5, going on 6 years.
Yeah.
So, and you read that, you edit that as well.
Yes. So those are the questions. It was interesting going back and looking at them. I think for some of them the answer didn't change too much,
No.
but otherwise I think for some of them we have clearer answers, especially like in hindsight.
And you can find on the website under media, under interviews, you can find the text for the original AMA
Yeah.
feed that we did.
Leave a like if you like this, subscribe if you want to see more, and ring the notification bell if you want to see exactly when these videos go up.
All right, so until next week, I'm David Hankins,
I'm Paul Hankins.
and this has been On the Air with Power Squared.